Hey everyone, welcome to K-Beauty and the Beast, the podcast on the business side of K-Beauty. For this episode, I am joined by Hannah Kemper, founder of Wonhwa, an experiential marketing agency on a mission to bring the soul of K-Beauty to life in the UK. In our conversation, we covered the power of in-person community events for driving brand awareness and loyalty, the critical role of localization when entering a new market, why Boots is the retailer to aim for if you're serious about the UK, and why the Korean wave is more than just a trend, as the global demand for K-culture and K-beauty is here to stay and will continue to grow. Now over to my conversation with Hannah. Enjoy. Hannah, thank you for joining me. First question, what is your K-beauty story? Where are you from and how did you end up in this industry?
It's funny because I actually think that my K-beauty story started a lot earlier than a lot of people realize. I am British. I grew up in Europe and I grew up going to international school. So I grew up in Hungary, Romania, and Germany. And I was lucky enough that I met a Japanese girl when I was in Hungary. So she started my interest in Asia. And then when I moved to Romania and Germany, I had a lot of Korean friends. And I remember that my best friend in Germany, Jinsol, shout out, she would always go back to Korea in the summer, and one summer she brought me back a box of what I thought were tissues. And I was so unimpressed. I was like, why have you brought me tissues from Korea? And she was like, no, Hannah, so much better than just tissues. And it was a box of sheet masks. And I remember it was so popular at the time. And I thought it was amazing. You know, she told me that her sister, who had been suffering with skin problems, had used them throughout the summer, had fixed her skin, and I was obsessed because I had terrible acne growing up, and so I thought, wow, this is my cure. But for some strange reason, I didn't want to waste them, so I never used them. I think I used 2 or 3, and they just dried up, and I was so sad. And I like to say that I've got better about, using things, but I think all of us are kind of guilty of hoarding and holding on to things that we think are precious. But that was 2010 or 2011, so it's been over a decade of K-beauty for me. Luckily, the tissue box dried up, but my love for K-beauty did not. I think it's always guided me, and it's just always made sense that I've ended up working in K-beauty.
So you got an introduction to K-beauty in around 2010, but then at some point you started working in K-beauty. When did that happen?
I was an exchange student in 2016. I went to Sogang University and I met the founder of Agaskin. We became friends. Then she sort of moved more from media at that time into K-beauty. And as that company evolved, I was lucky to grow with it. And so I actually think that my connection to K-beauty, but also marketing, happened so organically. And I think that when I look back, it all seems very obvious. At the time, nothing seems obvious. But when you look back, there's such an obvious thread. And so I think I got really nice exposure to K-beauty as an industry and as a professional, not just as a consumer. And so I got to understand how the industry works, what makes it special. And it's just such a wonderful and exciting place to work. So I worked for Agaskin for quite a while and grew with the company. Then I did my master's degree back in the UK because I wanted to do it formally. I wanted to know that if someone asked me a question about marketing, I actually knew the answer. So I did my master's degree, and then I decided, you know what? I think it's time for me to start my own company in K-beauty.
And that's a company that you recently started. Can you tell us a bit more about the company you founded and how you help K-beauty brands expand into the UK market?
Yeah, absolutely. So the company is called Wonhwa, and I'm sure it's people who have watched the K-drama Hwarang might be more familiar, or people that actually have more historical knowledge. The Wonhwa was female warrior cadets of ancient Korea, and I thought that was just so cool. And it's also a play on words to do with the Korean and then the characters and the Japanese and my name. So there's a lot of meaning in it. My dad hates the name because he's like, I can't say it.
Nice.
My parents are so supportive, but he's just like wah, wah, wah. So that's been a bit of a struggle. But I always say to people that Wonhwa, the beginning of it was quite selfish because a lot of what we do is based on community. We connect K-beauty brands to the UK through community building and creating relationships with creators. When I came back to the UK, I really wanted that. I wanted a community of other creators and I wanted a community that loved K-beauty, and I wanted to find a way to make this into a business where everyone benefited. So I also believe that offline and experiential experiences are so key to brands connecting to audiences. So what we do is we focus mainly on offline events where people can actually interact with the brand and they can feel the brand and they can touch the brand and then they connect with the brand and with each other. And we offer supplementary online marketing as well, but the main focus really is community and K-beauty being a big part of that.
You say you focus on bringing the real feel of Seoul's beauty culture to the UK. What does that look like? What kind of events have you had so far?
So we started with community events, and so these ones are a really great way for creators to come together and learn about the brands, oftentimes that they have seen online, but they've never actually interacted with, or they've seen the products on the shelf, but they've never had a reason to actually connect with these products, with the brand story. And the brands that I love working with and want to keep working with are ones that have really strong stories and a really strong value that they want to give to their, to their customers and to their audiences. And a lot of people that came to our first community event had said, I had no idea about this backstory. I had no idea that this was the heart of the brand. I'm so much more interested in this and I want to learn more about it. And I think that kind of replicating these touch points, because I think in Korea, Seongsu, you go to Seongsu and there's a pop-up every day, every few hours. And I think it's that ability to interact with a brand, with the people that represent the brand and feel the brand much more than just buying a product because you saw someone talk about it.
For these events, you do one brand at a time, or do you do multiple brands?
Well, this is a very good question. We actually offer different types of events. So our main offering is called a Wave Maker workshop, and those are a much deeper dive into the brand. And so for those ones, we create specific activities built around the brand. So especially when it comes to makeup and color cosmetics, we have a makeup artist, a professional makeup artist, and we go through the products and how to apply them not only to paler skin, but also to darker skin. Because another thing that Wonhwa really focuses on is diversity and inclusivity and making sure that these K-beauty brands, when they come to the UK, they're not just replicating what works in Korea, but they're actually understanding the challenges and the demands of the UK audience and the public. So we make sure that we are localizing. And I think a big part of that is showing how to use these products and what they look like on British people. I didn't answer your question, sorry. So we have some events that are one brand and some events that are multi-brand. The community events tend to be multi-brand because more about brand awareness and having a fun space to explore and discover new brands. And then the workshop is much more like focused on one brand, and this is why it's fantastic.
So I guess for bigger brands, it might make sense to do the deep dive events. And if they're smaller brands, they can go into the multi-brand event. Is that the way you think about it?
They serve different purposes as well. If you want a sort of softer launch, I think the community events are really good, but then they're also much more low barrier. I know that a lot of brands, the budget's not always there, but they still want to do things. And so I think that for almost like off-peak seasons as well, I think the community events are great because it's a low barrier way to keep your brand interacting with people and keep it in people's minds. So it's not as intensive as doing a really big event, but it's still a fun way to connect to people.
It's good to have options that offer different events for different goals and budgets. You touched on localizing the events for the local aspects of the UK market. So for Korean brands, they want to enter the UK market. Of course, it's very different from Korea. So what are some of the challenges specific to the UK, some of the opportunities specific to the UK, and what are some of the biggest misunderstandings Korean beauty brands make when they try to enter the UK market?
I think that a lot of brands tend towards believing that a copy and paste strategy will work because they're kind of banking on the popularity of or the power of the Korean wave. And so, on that hand, I think that the Korean wave is fantastic, and that, I've always said Korea as a country, as a government, I don't think any other country invests in its soft power or its exporting of culture as well as Korea does. So I think they do that fantastically. And I think it's a good time to push for globalization for Korean brands. But I think that the UK is such a diverse country, and that we also have different consumer demands to Korea. For example, people really value vegan and non-cruelty brands. There's also a move towards sustainable packaging. And then there's also diversity inclusivity within UK brands or brands that want to succeed in the UK. It's not negotiable anymore. It just doesn't fly, which is fantastic. But I think that you need to understand this before you decide to enter the UK. You have to understand and take time to invest in understanding what does the UK customer actually want from you. And I think that a great example I have, and it's so low stakes, but I think it kind of really symbolizes this issue. There was a brand and they had a product, and I think that on the packaging it had a little tagline, but it was something like, perfect mascara for Asian woman. And I just thought, did no one think to maybe tweak this? It's so low stakes, it doesn't have a huge impact, but I just thought, okay. Does that mean I can't use it? It's not for me. So it's low stakes, but I think it really kind of demonstrates you need a really strong approach to each market.
You help brands with community building, set up events. Do you do any kind of help with their marketing messaging before entering the market?
Yeah, so there was a brand that I was doing a consultation for last week. It was the first time that we'd really dived into a lot of elements that they were preparing for the market. And it was the funniest thing as well, because I think that for smaller brands, a lot of them look to the bigger brands as benchmarks, which is fantastic. You need benchmarks. However, I think there are so many brands that took off during the pandemic and let's say like 2021. And a lot of this is to do with the market landscape at the time, and people, we're all stuck at home. People are buying products, they're making content. So it's a very different time. And a lot of these brands that took off there, I think, are huge success stories for smaller brands, and they look to just copy and paste, especially when it comes to a content strategy. But this brand that I was talking to, I would say, well, why do you exist? Why? I mean, I'm not being mean. I asked you, why have you made this brand? And what do you solve? Whose pain point? Who is your customer? How does your product fit into their life? And he was great. And he was like, what? I mean, I guess. And I was like, well, that's where you've got to start, is with your customer and what do they want from your brand and why do you exist? It's not a mean question. It's genuinely why? For what? What's your unique value proposition? It's really fascinating, I think, seeing how different brands approach it. And it's been fantastic because I think I have been able to help them a lot, especially because it's very easy not to see these little gaps in what you're doing. So I'm sure that if someone came and looked at my operations, they'd be able to point out all these little gaps and say, Hannah, why haven't you thought about this? Or like, what are you doing here? And I'd go, oh my God, you're right. So it's easy to be the outsider that comes in and tweaks things. I'm not saying people are getting things wrong or, oh no, it's hopeless. But I think you do need someone that can come in and very objectively say, okay, how do we improve this? How do we make sure that you get return on investment for this huge investment into going into a new market? And I think that's what's really great, again, about localization and having someone on the ground.
Difficult questions can be painful for founders, but it's definitely helpful. If you can't answer those difficult questions, you're never going to be able to succeed. So that's just part of building a business.
I think you're so right. I think it's those difficult questions that push growth. And I'm sure you'd be very humble and say, oh, yes, I had a lot of difficult questions. I think everyone is quite resistant to them at first. And I know that a lot of people have challenged me. And I was like, but I like this, or what, but you can feel the growth from them.
They sting at first, but then you think about it and then you realize, you need to answer those questions.
Yes.
Moving on to sales channels in the UK. In Korea, we have Olive Young. People buy at Olive Young when they buy K-beauty. In the UK, where do people buy skincare in general, and where do they buy K-beauty products? Are there different places for those two things? And are the traditional places where people buy skincare starting to stock K-beauty products?
This has been something I've been discussing with brands looking to enter the UK. And another reason that I really advise making sure they know exactly who their brand is, because the retailer that you choose to enter with is so crucial, I think, to setting up your brand image in the UK. And in terms of specific K-beauty retailers, I think there are some fantastic retailers in the UK, and I love their branding and I love their concept. So I think that K-beauty has taken off in such a way in the UK, and thanks to these retailers, that I feel very proud of, K-beauty in the UK. I think they've done a fantastic job. And I know that there are a few in particular that I think exclusivity with these retailers is very attractive, because I think you have a much closer partnership, and so I think that can be a huge plus. But on the flip side, that can become quite niche. And I know a lot of other brands that want to make sure that they are on the shelves of the retailers that the whole of the UK is going to visit. And I would definitely say that Boots is the biggest retailer. And I think if you're in Boots, it's like, oh my God, we've done it, we've succeeded. So I think Boots is definitely the retailer that brands do and should aim for. I also think there are certain other, department stores that have started to push more for K-beauty. And I'll be very honest, there's a little bit of me that's so bitter, because I think a few years ago, I did approach some of these department stores to try and, persuade them, hey, we're working with a lot of K-beauty brands. I think there's so much potential. I think that if you worked with us and these brands, we could put you at the forefront of the K-beauty wave that's coming to the UK. Did they say yes? They did not. But now they've got K-beauty, which is great. But no, I think definitely Boots is the big one. Then Pure Soul, I think, is fantastic. Skin Cupid,
Pure Soul, they are the K-beauty specialists, right? And then Boots is where most of Britain goes to buy their skincare products, and they are increasingly stocking K-beauty brands, but I guess only the biggest ones would make it there.
It's very interesting to me, because I know that from working with French department stores to bring K-beauty, that a lot of times they only are truly interested in the brands that have a huge online presence and like that potential for virality, even though a lot of times what goes viral on Western social media is not the same as what's actually popular in Korea. And we'd have this discussion back and forth, and we'd say like, okay, I know it's popular on TikTok, but in Korea no one's using it, and our USP is we're bringing you the brands that people are actually using, but no, we want social media brands. And I think that when it comes to Boots, they definitely stock the social media brands, but then they also stock a few brands that I would consider to be successful on social media, but they have much more of a cult following, which I think is really fantastic. And I think it does actually, I mean, Boots doesn't need more credibility, do they? But I think it does improve their credibility in the K-beauty market.
I've also been in the position where I reached out to buyers from both small retailers and big retailers, and everyone asks for the same thing, that they want to see the number of followers on Instagram. It's understandable from their point of view as well,
Yeah,
but if
yeah.
they don't take a chance on if they don't take a chance on new brands once in a while, they're never going to be different from the other retailers.
I agree with you so much. And I, like you say, I get it. If I was a buyer, I also would be asking for the same things, and I'd want the same assurances, and I wouldn't want to take a brand to my boss and they were like, why on earth have you, why on earth have you signed up with this brand? So I get it. But like you say, I think some brands, I think if you work in K-beauty and in the beauty industry for long enough, you start to get a sense of the brands that have potential. Even if it's not been nurtured just yet, you kind of start to, you have a sense, oh, this brand has potential. This brand could grow. And then you have to work out how to convince everyone else.
Moving on to the broader K-beauty hype. A few years ago, K-beauty had a big moment. So you already touched upon that. Where do you think we are now in terms of hype versus real growth potential? And how do you see K-beauty in the next 2 to 3 years in Europe or UK specifically?
I I think that the initial hype of K culture in general is still there in some form, but it's not as ephemeral, I think, as some people thought it could be. And I think I spoke about this earlier, but I think that the Korean government and their soft power and the way they push their culture, I think that plays a big part in it. So I don't think they were going to let this moment go. And I think they really took advantage of it, which is great. So I think that because K-beauty doesn't come in isolation, it comes with K-pop, and it comes with K-food, and it comes with K-culture, and it comes with K-history, and it comes with K-dramas and K-movies. I think that it has such staying power, and I think that because K-beauty works, that is its other strength. It has the power from all that soft power launch to build brand awareness, to be interesting and to intrigue people. But because the products work and the brand philosophies are so strong, it's going to stay. And I think it will just become part of the beauty landscape in all the markets that they enter, because, people want products that work, and K-beauty works.
I 100% agree. My own opinion, and also other people I've talked to, think that K-beauty growth has just started. We've just scratched the surface a little bit. It's gonna boom. Good times ahead for the K-beauty industry globally.
Yes.
If someone from a K-beauty brand representative is listening to our conversation, and they want to enter the UK, what is one thing they absolutely should not do, and one thing they just have to do before entering the market?
Well, the first thing is obviously work with Wonhwa. But I would say let's start with the negative and then move on to the positive. But I'd say for what not to do, I think we spoke a lot about this earlier, but it's do not underappreciate the value of localization and make sure that you're not copy and pasting. If you want to really value the UK market, take the time to understand not only your customers, what they want, but what their pain points are and how you as a brand can fit into their lives and how you can offer solutions instead of just relying on the fact that you are a Korean brand or that you have cute packaging. There has to be a lot of value behind it. And then I would say what K-beauty brands must do is make sure they find and really push for ways to connect with their UK audience and make sure that they are focusing on touch points that bring their brand to life. So it's all, good and well to be huge on social media, but if the screen is the only way for people to interact with your brand, I think you're missing out on so much potential. So I think finding ways to really connect with your audience, whether that be through panels, I think are a great way to actually tell your audience that you care what they think and you want to involve them, whether that be community events or workshops, just making sure that you find ways to connect with your audience in a way that feels authentic.
If someone wants to reach out to you to learn more about what you do and maybe you're interested in entering the UK market, what's the best way to reach out?
The best way to reach out is either hannah@wonhwa.co.uk, or you can find Wonhwa or me on LinkedIn. I know a lot of friends have found that a really great way to reach out to me. So there's many ways to contact me. Please do get in touch.
Hannah, thank you so much for joining me today. It was a real pleasure and very educational. I don't have much knowledge of the UK market myself, so that was really great to learn more about the UK market and what you do. Thanks a lot for joining me today.
No, thank you. So lovely to talk to you about something that I really am very passionate about. And I hope to make another reappearance one day on season 10 of this podcast.